everyone, and welcome to the regular business meeting of the District of Squamish for Tuesday, March 17th. Squalin, Squamish, I don't adopt this agenda.
No, you don't have to.
Okay. So these are strange times, and we are going to do something different this evening, which is, Council, I'm going to ask you for a motion to defer the business of the regular meeting to this special meeting that was posted for 6:10 this evening. And this is purely to allow for the participation of our councillors who couldn't be here because they're at home. And our procedure bylaw doesn't allow for electronic participation in a regular business meeting. So we're just going to defer the business of this, and then we'll terminate the regular meeting, and then we'll open up the special meeting. So would someone like to support that motion? So a motion by Councillor Stoner to defer the business of the regular business meeting to the special business meeting of Tuesday, March 17th, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to terminate, moved by Councillor Herford, very keen, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so now that it's 6:10, I will open the special business meeting for the District of Squamish on Tuesday, March 17th. We are meeting tonight, as always, on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. We have two councillors participating electronically, so I have to read them a statement about how they can participate this evening. So council members attending the meeting electronically are required to advise the chair of the meeting of the following circumstances. When the council member disconnects or reconnects, so in other words, you're entering or exiting the meeting so that this can be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Council members are to identify themselves when they advise the chair they wish to be placed on the speakers list, and you can do this by just saying chair. With respect to a vote, council members are only required to state a nay vote. No statement is required if the member is in favor. Council members shall put the telephone on mute unless they wish to speak. Council members shall be involved in and participate in the meeting, so we do expect you to be actively engaged this evening. Council members shall text the corporate officer if they're having technical difficulty with their phone. And the meeting will be recessed for up to 10 minutes if a technical difficulty occurs on our side and we need to reconnect. So with that, I will have a motion to approve the amended agenda, please, for the special business meeting, moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We had one delegation that was going to be here this evening requesting a letter of support. We asked them to not come in order to reduce the amount of people that were in council chambers this evening. But their letter was included in our package, and so council, we would just need to vote this evening on whether to provide a letter of support.
I'll move that we provide a letter of support.
Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Does anybody have any comments on this?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Pengio.
I will be supporting this. I think it's a good project. I just want to highlight that the reason I'm supporting this is because they've asked for support beyond the Arts Council grant process, and I just want to make very clear that I would like to avoid an expectation going forward that everyone who's wanting an Arts Council grant comes and gets a letter of support for council. I don't think we want to be that obstacle, and this is sort of, again, I am supporting this for the other things outside of the Arts Council grant process.
Thank you, Councillor Pengio. I'll be supporting this. This is a really interesting initiative to provide a community workshop around paddle making and learning about history and our relationship to the forest through that exercise. So I think this will be really very interesting for our community. I wish them good luck. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Any consideration of unscheduled public attendance, so this is anyone who believes that they have something of a very urgent nature that cannot wait until the next scheduled meeting. Seeing none, we do not have any public hearings this evening. And so we'll move on to item 8B, first 3 readings of the Intermunicipal Transportation Network Business License, bylaw number 2745, 2012. Turn it over to you, staff. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think this is the first time that our community planning assistant is in front of council. This is Lily Marie Peterson, who's written the report and will do the presentation.
So I'm here tonight to present the Intermunicipal Transportation Network Services Business License Bylaw.
You're going to need to speak louder for the
Yeah.
folks on the phone, thanks.
Provincial legislation, which has been in force since September 2019, has reduced the municipal authority to only regulate passenger-directed vehicles, being limousines, being taxi limousines and ride-hailing vehicles. The province is now has the sole authority to regulate company fleet size and operation boundaries, to set vehicle standards and to issue driver chauffeur permits. However, municipalities retain the ability to issue business licenses and to regulate street use and traffic. Oops, sorry. An IMBL is a business license that allows mobile businesses to operate across participating municipalities with the purchase of one license. An IMBL is formed through common bylaws enacted by each participating municipality. The IMBL agreement bylaw allows municipalities to partner with other municipalities. The agreement addresses terms such as the fee, revenue sharing formula and distribution, and overall administration of the license. The second bylaw, the IMBL bylaw, is the formal mechanism through which the IMBL is implemented in each municipality and sets out the various terms and conditions that apply to the IMBL across participating municipalities. So the participating municipalities created an IMBL work group and met weekly throughout the month of January 2020 to develop the proposal for an IMBL for ride-hailing. The working group was able to establish a licensing authority, license fee structure, license conditions, and license fee revenue sharing. The particulars of the IMBL represent the outcome of 2/3 majority-based voting undertaken by the IMBL working group members and staff advocated, and voted for license terms and conditions which considered the district's climate emergency response. The current slide shows an overview of many of the municipalities participating in the Region 1 of the ride-hailing IMBL, so it should encompass all that area. So the City of Vancouver will be the licensing authority for the IMBL, which means that ride-hailing companies will need to purchase a license from the City of Vancouver. The license will allow companies to operate in all participating Region 1 municipalities. The City of Vancouver is well positioned for this role because it has enacted the license bylaw in October 2019 and is prepared to issue and administer licenses with terms and conditions as described below. It was decided that the annual license fee will be a company fee of $155 with additional fees per vehicle, depending if $150 for each vehicle, and then it's going to be $30 for each zero emission vehicle, and it'll be $0 for each wheelchair accessible vehicle. As the issuing authority, the City of Vancouver will collect all license fees. It will retain the funds sufficient to recover all investments, direct and indirect costs of the IMBL setup, while the ongoing license administration and remaining revenues will be shared based on the percentage of total regional pickups and drop-offs that occur within each municipality. Year 1 of the IMBL program includes setup costs that are expected to fall in subsequent years as the program is regularized. Okay.
Councillors on the phone, if you could put your phone on mute, please.
At the end of each license year, the City of Vancouver will provide participating municipalities with a year-end account of costs, and revenue will be shared. So companies will be required to comply with the municipal bylaws and regulations of each participating municipality. We'll retain authority to enforce our own bylaws, for example, street and traffic regulations, and also be able to suspend or cancel an IMBL. Because the suspension and cancellation of a license would affect all participating municipalities, staff in participating municipalities will establish a shared protocol for escalating enforcement prior to any municipality considering suspension or cancellation. This protocol will include communicating with the provincial register and passenger transportation branch and about ongoing concerns with a company or vehicle. Access to detailed trip data is critical for municipalities in understanding the impact of ride-hailing in their communities at both the system-wide and street levels. The BC Passenger Transportation Branch requires comprehensive vehicles and trip data from each company. And in February, the province confirmed that municipalities will be able to access the data on a regular, ongoing basis through a partnership agreement with the Passenger Transportation Branch. Consequently, detailed trip data will not be a requirement of the IMBL. Municipalities will benefit from access to provincial data, and companies will benefit from not having to duplicate data submission efforts. As a condition of the IMBL, licensed ride-hailing companies will be required to report the total number of pickups and drop-offs occurring in each participating municipality, so as to enable the City of Vancouver to calculate the share of revenue owed to each one. The IMBL for ride-hailing differs in license structure from our current structure for taxi companies in Squamish, which is charged $130 for just the actual business as a whole and does not charge per vehicle. Should the proposed IMBL bylaws be approved by Council and by other participating municipalities, Vancouver staff are prepared to issue the IMBL licenses on April 1st this year and prepare fee invoices and set up the year-end revenue distribution. So staff recommends that Council approve the District's participation in the inter-municipality business license for ride-hailing and give first 3 readings to the license agreement and business bylaws. Over to you.
Thank you. Council, any questions on what's been presented? Councillor Stoner.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious, and recognizing that regional districts have different authorities, especially with regards to business licensing, but were they included in these conversations? And if not, then what happens if somebody gets dropped off at Britannia Beach?
Britannia Beach is they're going to dropped off from Vancouver,
Sure. Or Squamish?
the Squamish. So I believe because they're not participating in it, so they'll have to get their own license and it's separate, but we would still obviously get the data picked up, but we wouldn't share it with the drop-off. So when they leave outside of a participating municipality, we just get counted as a pickup, but it's only going to be half the fare. And then the other percentage is basically yours.
And just to add to that, the regional districts were invited to participate, and I believe they were invited to every meeting. However, given that they don't have the licensing authority that municipalities have, most regional districts, I think, were not part of the conversation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Councillor French.
Thank you. Is it feasible that Squamish could do this on its own, so not in partnership with other communities?
Sorry, through the mayor. Is it feasible? We could just, yeah, I mean, I don't think personally it would probably benefit the actual companies as far as it's, because they're still going to have to be part of the intermunicipality business license anyway. If we were to leave, they would have to have their license with us, and then also, but then they wouldn't be able to, if they were to go into Whistler or anywhere else outside of our actual district, then they would have to still have that license as well.
And are there any ride-hailing vehicles currently operating in Squamish legitimately and proper?
Yeah, January 29th we approved, sorry, through the mayor. January 29th we approved a business license for Whistle, who currently have 2 cars operating in Squamish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? One of the things that I was curious about in the report, it says that, and we know that ride-hailing services do take people off of transit, especially bus transit. And so that's one of the concerns that I have. And it says that passengers would have otherwise, while main trips taken with ride-hailing vehicles substitute trips that passengers would have otherwise driven themselves, it indicates that between 42 and 61% of urban users would have taken transit, walked, bike, or not taken a trip at all. So there's no real way to collect that data through the Passenger Transportation Board. Like how will we know if this is having an impact on our transit system? Right now we have 2 cars, so I'm not really worried, but that kind of, we're not going to be asking them to pull their customers or.
Through you, Mayor, yeah, this is a big concern for a lot of municipalities, that this will compete with the transit service, essentially. And I think the plan at the moment, because we can't prohibit ride hailing in the district, we can only regulate it, and we believe that this sort of trial period of this intermunicipal business license is meant to be a 1-year period after which we review how it's working, and we will be collecting data through the City of Vancouver, and we'll be comparing that to our transit ridership if we can. But it is, there's a bit of an unknown how will this impact the transit service at this point.
Well, it's interesting they don't include cabs in there. So they would have taken transit, walked, bike, or not taken a trip at all. But the option to take a cab wasn't in there, which is strange if you're doing ride hailing versus a cab. So, but I think that's be interesting to know how we'll be able to collect that data in working with the other municipalities going forward, whether there's an annual survey through these companies. But it should ask that question: if you weren't using this service and you still need to get to where you're going, would you? Any other questions? All right, so there's 2 bylaws in front of us. One that is our participation in the INBL, and the other is that we give first readings to our business license bylaw.
I'll move the recommendations, all 3 together.
You have to do them separately.
I'll have to do them separately. I will start with the first one.
So the first 2 clauses. So the District of Squamish give first readings to the Intermunicipal Transportation Network Services Business License Agreement number 2745-2020. Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any comments? Councillor Stoner?
Thanks for staff for participating in this. I'm really excited to see this come forward and for the collaboration that has happened across multiple jurisdictions. I think this is important for us to demonstrate that we are able to come up with an intermunicipal business license and keep that authority within our communities and not entirely within the province, and that was the risk here. And so thank you for getting this to us as quickly as you and the other municipalities have done. And I'm looking forward to having more cars on the road. Unfortunately, I wouldn't actually think that I would say that. Hopefully most of them are EVs, and we move towards having multiple people in one car after the COVID crisis.
Oh God.
Current
Councillor French.
has been suspended.
I support this motion and recognize that BC has been very slow to accept this transportation business model. And I'm looking forward to the upcoming review of taxi regulations in the province at some point in the future, as I'd like to see some relaxation of the taxi regulation so that industry can better compete with these new players. This mode of transportation is overdue. I support the motion.
Thank you. I'm glad this is only 1 year. I think it's going to have a massive impact in the Lower Mainland once people actually want to get in a car, again with a stranger. But I think the data that we'll be able to collect from this is really important to watch what happens down the Lower Mainland. I'm not sure it's going to have a negative impact here. I think it'll be positive. But still, it's a trend to watch and follow. So thanks for your work on this. I appreciate it. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Should I move the,
Oh yeah, the second one. Moved by Councillor Stoner, Second by,
I'll go.
I'm gonna give it to Councillor Clarke.
Sure.
Any comments on the, on this one? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next up, the District of Squamish Procedure Bylaw. This is an amendment to our procedure bylaw. So, I was just on a conference call with the province, and we know there's some changes in legislation coming to help municipal governments through what we're grappling with. In the meantime, the only thing we can do to enable more distancing and to enable more electronic participation by council members is by changing our procedural bylaws. So I'll hand it over to Ms. Arthurs to talk a little bit about the changes that are being recommended.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. Robin Arthurs, General Manager, Corporate Services and Corporate Officer for the District of Squamish. After a bit of discussion yesterday on the emerging situation and how we're going to move business forward here at the district, we thought it prudent to bring forward some amendments to the procedure bylaw. And what's before you is a hybrid of what exists currently in the procedure bylaw and new sections. So the first new section that's in the bylaw is the provision to allow for electronic meetings. That's not currently in the bylaw, and so this would allow in a situation where there's an emergency, the mayor or acting mayor will determine that the emergency involving health, safety, or the environment, and that it's better that council holds their meeting electronically. So that means we don't have to have quorum in the council chamber. If people still want to come in, that's fine, but you do have the ability to hold an entirely electronic meeting. And that isn't in our bylaw so far, and it is allowed under the legislation. The second thing are amendments to electronic participation. So currently, members of council can only participate in a special meeting. We're going to add in provision to allow for participation in regular meetings as well. And we're going to up the number of participants to 3. So anything over 3 creates quorum, and that becomes an electronic meeting. So we're going to leave it at 3 for call-ins, and otherwise it's an electronic meeting.
Wait, explain that part again.
So
What is quorum?
quorum is 4.
Okay.
So electronic participation is 3. An electronic meeting is 4 more.
Mm.
Does that make sense? You get that?
Just let her finish.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
So that amendment provides the ability for members of council to participate. It adds to it, sorry. The other thing that's not currently included is staff's ability to participate electronically in a regular council meeting. So what it says is that staff can participate in any type of meeting with the leave of the CA or the mayor in their discretion. And then the last amendment is to allow for delegations to participate electronically at council meetings, council committee meetings, sorry, which includes committee of the whole. So once, if council gives 3 readings to this bylaw amendment, we have to give statutory notice, 2 consecutive issues of paper, and then we can adopt the bylaw. So the changes don't take place until after the statutory notice provisions take place.
Councillor.
Is that the conclusion? Thank you. No, I have no problem with all that. I think it's an appropriate response to what's happening. I was curious, in the original electronic participation bylaw, there was some language around the maximum number that you could attend electronically. or, and I wondered if while we're doing this, we should
Sure.
revisit that, or if that's required.
So what my suggestion would be, we could amend, give it 3 readings as amended, to include unless by motion of council. So that would be similar to when there's unusual circumstances and councillors have to miss more than 4 meetings, council can pass a motion which grants them leave for missing more meetings. You could also do the same in this bylaw. You could, unless leave of council is granted, unless a motion of council is required, and the council could extend it. What we don't want is to make it so broad that there's councillors who may always participate electronically.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that piece. I just wanted to make sure that we left ourselves room to not have to do notice and so on if we need to, if the situation, this one or another one, extends beyond the allowable number, which is 4. That's 4.
So that would be G, section G, that we would.
Yeah,
amend?
and I would say unless by motion of council.
Okay, unless by motion of council, a
Yeah,
council
it is.
member attending a council meeting or terminating, so for a maximum of 4 council meetings.
Are you sure their phones are working?
Yes, they're on mute.
Okay. Just should have heard Chris by now.
Oh.
We have heard from Councillor Pettingill, so they'll take themselves off mute when they want to speak. And they're,
Chair?
yes,
Yeah, Chair?
hold on a second. And they'll text Robin if they're not getting through.
Okay.
Okay. Were you done, Councillor?
Yep, no, that's fine.
Okay, I've
Thank
got Councillor Stoner, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Pettingill.
Thank you, and I do appreciate the direction this is going. I think it's necessary at this point. My question is just around electronic meetings, and if we move towards having an electronic regular meeting, for example, how do we ensure that those are still open to the public, given those statutory requirements?
That's a great question. What we have to do is post that the meeting will be held electronic, that council will be participating electronically, and we have to identify the means that councillors are going to participate. So there could be even a combination, it could be Skype and on the phone. And we still have to have the meeting open to the public, so it would also include a statement saying you can come and attend in the council chamber or stream online, and how you can watch the meeting. What it wouldn't allow for is public participation. So we likely wouldn't hold a public hearing, for example, in a circumstance that's considered an emergency by the mayor. So that kind of thing would be moot.
Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Pettingill, you had a question?
Yeah, and I just had a little bit difficulty hearing one piece of that. So it sounds like my question may have been addressed, but I was wondering about, if there's an important distinction between a national, provincial, or locally declared emergency, and if just clarifying if an officially declared state of emergency with what we're proposing now, with the discussion we've had, will sort of open up the freedom. So regardless of how many times you attended previously in the year electronically, just to maximize participation in an actual emergency, you'd sort of have a guarantee of being able to participate electronically, assuming the technology enables that.
Yeah, the amendment to G will help with that, but because this is emerging right now, the province and the federal government are actually looking at flexibilities based on what's happening now. So I think that every situation will be looked at individually, and they will provide allowances individually, as opposed to passing legislation blanket that doesn't cover all local governments at the same time.
Okay.
Do you have a follow-up question?
No, I think it sounds like we're addressing it. I just want to make sure we don't end up in a situation where, an emergency drags on and we're still stuck. Our rules are preventing us from having the meetings we need to have. But I do think it's important to limit it to very special, like, emergency circumstances.
I think Ms. Arthurs is nodding her head, so I think we've covered our bases.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions, council? As I say, I am expecting more information to come from the province about how local government will move business forward, depending on how long this lasts, and also what powers we might be granted through the emergency measure BC process. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, this is the tool that we have at our disposal. So does someone want to move this with the amended section G? Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any comments? On the question, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for looking after us, Ms. Arthur. Okay, next up is third reading of District of Squamish zoning bylaw. This is amendment bylaw for the Squamish Canyon project, number 2685. Over to you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carrie Hamilton. I'm a planner with Community Planning. And Devin Kianaga is actually in isolation, so he should be on the phone with us this evening as well. He is the municipal engineer on this project. So we are here this evening to answer any questions that may come up for a third reading.
Okay, and Devin, are you on the phone?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so because there was a councillor that missed the public hearing, there was a report included in our agenda to summarize the public hearing for Councillor Race. That is a requirement. So Council, are there any questions at this point? I'm not hearing any. Does someone want to move what is in front of us?
Sheriff?
I'm going to allow Councillor Anderson, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Race.
I'll be prepared to move the recommendation.
Councillor Race, are you seconding?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Anderson?
Yes. I am going to be in support of this, and there's been a tremendous amount of information brought to us, and I think it's been brought to us very well by staff that has managed this process, including the public hearing event. I thought it was exceptionally well managed. One of our correspondents has suggested, let's find traffic, parking, and camping solutions before we start to attract more people. I have to agree or sympathize, but we are addressing camping, but these other issues are just not within our jurisdiction or within our powers. The same correspondent suggested that, or pointed out these are people that are going to be attracted to an area with active logging and logging truck traffic that they may not be used to or experienced with. I would also agree with this is an important issue, but we will have with this project safety improvements that will come along with it. The area has been described as rare, accessible, and a natural area. But so were within my lifetime, and for many people's memory, the 4 lakes in Ellis Lake Provincial Park, Cat Lake, and Rome Lake. This is an evolution that we must manage. We can't stop it. It's been said, in fact, by the proponent, we need to create more low-impact, safe outdoor experiences for our current and future visitors. Although this was debated as a point during the public hearing, I must say that I do agree with this. I agree that we must be more proactive and not reactive in planning for the backcountry pressures that we will experience. The reality is, for this site, through the OCP land use designations, zoning, and ownership, and the owner objectives that we are aware of for this vicinity, it cannot be considered to be or protected as a so-called, or to quote, peaceful part of Squamish we must keep to ourselves. This is no longer realistic. Finally, There were a number of concerns regarding the lower part of the Manquam Forest Service Road, paving costs, who will meet them, and the issue of the phased road upgrades. My own consideration here is that we must ensure that this will be a viable business, and that otherwise it will be an albatross around our necks. If we are successful, and perhaps this will also be daunting if there's way more visitors than expected that will build up in the coming years, then there will be more dollars and more tools in the box to address the issues of the lower part of the Forest Service Road, which is a multi-stakeholder venue, that lower part of the Forest Service Road. So in conclusion, I will be supporting this recommendation. I do support this recommendation. I wish the proponents all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Race, did you want to speak?
I did, thank you. So I think, first of all, let me state, and I think most people know that I was not present at the public hearing a week ago. I was out of the country and recently returned, and as a result, find myself in self-isolation. However, I have read the staff report on the public hearing, read the correspondence, and I watched the public hearing on the archived video on the website, all 3 hours, 47 minutes, and 38 seconds of it. We find ourselves in Squamish in a transition from a totally resource-based community to a more diversified economy. And this has been going on over the time I've been on council. And one element of that diversification is facilitating tourism, which, as staff mentioned, is one of our core economic sectors. There is a need for tourism infrastructure to make that work. It's not unique to Squamish. I also sit in the Regional District Board this term and last term, and that is a common discussion at that board, is the lack of infrastructure and the lack of destinations for tourists to go without just having the whole thing run amok. Visitors will come here looking for an outdoor experience. I don't think they come to Squamish to shop or do other things that sometimes tourists do. And so in that respect, we have to accommodate that. So here we are faced in that context with a land use decision, but that's all it is. The question is whether this is an appropriate use for this land. We're not concerned with funding mechanisms or how the proponent gets its money. That is actually, in my view, none of our business. It is a private development, not a public development, as some speakers urged, but there is ample precedent for that. Whistler Mountain was built by private capital. The gondola was built by private capital, and there are countless examples of that across this country. We must recognize that with any kind of development, there are impacts, and tourism is no exception. So this proposal offers managed tourism, a managed tourism area. It will probably also, as a sidelight, improve the road that people complained about, and which, if it's lacking, will have to be improved for this to be a successful business. It will allow access to an area in a safe and accessible manner. It will allow members of the public who may not otherwise experience the natural environment to do so. Those being mobility challenged people or people who just lack outdoor experience and are a little bit nervous about leaving a settled area. These areas, we have to remember, belong to all of us, not just those who are experienced and able-bodied. And so I feel that this is an appropriate use of the land. It has relatively easy access, better than the alternative uses that might be available for it. It will provide an economic benefit to Squamish and being part of diversifying our economy. So I will be supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor French?
Thank you. I had concerns with this project initially, and one particular concern that wasn't getting any airtime in the early stages. There didn't seem to be any control over sound coming from the site. Specifically, I was worried that a music festival promoter could fall in love with the area and create a Manquam Canyon Music Festival, headlined by, I don't know, AC/DC The concern, though, has been addressed, and I'm comfortable that the neighborhood concerns, which I heard loud and clear, have been sufficiently addressed either by district staff, the proponent, or other stakeholders involved. So I acknowledge the concerns about dust, traffic, wildlife impacts, safety, environmental impacts, and public access. They're all legitimate concerns. And I also believe that those concerns will prove to be less impactful than predicted by some folks. We're hardwired for adventure in Squamish, and this project further proves that we truly are the outdoor recreation capital of Canada. I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner?
Thank you, Mayor. I too will be supporting the motion that's currently on the floor after much weighted consideration. I first want to thank the amount of feedback that we received from the community on this project, and having the past week to kind of go back over what was said at the public hearing and really digest the amount of written comments we also received. It was lengthy. To me, I think, as many of my other council colleagues have said, we are definitely in a component of change and growth in our community, and it's quite substantial. And I think that for many folks, it feels like it's happening and continues to happen at a rate that is too quick. And the challenge with that is that we can't change that rate of growth. We can really only just manage it. And to me, I believe that this application is one that will help us do that. To me, it's important to remember what the current zoning is of this project. It's an RS1 primary, so single family residential. The small portion of P6, it's a crown lease that currently has active logging rights on it. It's a second growth forest that will likely otherwise get logged. The proposed development is low impact, and it's striving for some of the highest standards of sustainability, which meet a lot of the criteria that we have in our OCP policies as a community. One concern that I definitely heard from folks over and over again is what happens if this proponent goes under and if the funding doesn't come through. And I think, as Councillor Ray said, that is beyond our realm of jurisdiction at this level as a municipality. We're considering a land use change here and whether this is an appropriate means for this particular parcel. I am satisfied that the level of detail that staff have included in the new comprehensive development zone is robust enough that if something does unfortunately happen with this proponent, there's nothing that is substantially different that could be changed with this current zoning or proposed new zoning. The other key issue that I heard was around privatization of the land. And I do think that this is a really notable concern and one that we always need to kind of have our guard up. But the reality is that the proponent has worked really hard with some of the key stakeholders in this area. And if nothing else, they have pushed the Mamquam River Access Society in particular to seek a Section 56 that will ensure continued public access to some of the key criteria or key areas for our river access users. And so with that, the one other thing that I will say is last week we also saw the tourism, we had Tourism Squamish, the Chamber, and the Economic Development Office come forward with our tourism impact survey results. And they continue to work on recommendations and next steps out of the tourism impact study. And I think what I heard from a lot of folks is that we do need to manage the impacts of tourism and understand our tourism carrying capacity within our community as a whole. And I don't think it's fair to hold this particular proponent with that entire weight. And I think that is better addressed through that tourism impact study. And I think that we do need to do that work as a community, and I look forward to seeing that happen.
Thank you. Councillor Herford?
Thank you. I'll also be supporting this this project. I've been impressed with the proponents' willingness to work with and accommodate the various user groups that come through the area. The endorsement from the Whitewater folks was held a lot of weight for me. The improved safety around the falls. I mean, it doesn't. take much look at that and see that there's that looks dangerous. So to the improved safety aspect around that and the endorsement of the paddling community held a lot of weight with me. Also, the continued access for whether it's the mountain biking or just walking down to the existing sort of viewing platform, that being able to maintain that in parallel with the project has been is a great concession, and I'm happy to see that there. I also think that there's various examples around Squamish where at the edge of the neighborhood where it interfaces with the wilderness, we have all sorts of challenges. The area is at some future date will be a neighborhood leading out to this facility, and there will be a nice a controlled interface with the wilderness there, and a clear access point. I think that is very important as well, rather than build the community out to it and then what do we do with all these people that are there. So I like this order of operations. I also share concerns with residents around the traffic through our traffic impact study showed that we're going to have with this project facilitating the improvements to the intersection, we'll actually have an increase in safety at the Highway 99 junction, and potentially, and it looks to be in future, moving perhaps as far as paving the whole road out there. So from a emergency access to Valley Cliff, and there was a few years ago, I say a few years, was it a decade or more, where we had a bridge out and we had to have, how are we going to get these people in and out of Valley Cliffs? Now this will lead to the even a more resilient Valley Cliff community going forward. I think my council counterparts have covered a lot of the ground as well, so I'll leave my comments there. But thank you.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yep, Council Pettingill?
I too will be supporting this. Just the thing that stuck out to me the most as an area of concern is the privatization of public space. But having walked the site and seeing, the mountain biker, how busy this area is, and knowing that it could be logged, it is that is something that I wanted to find a way to avoid, and I think this project does that, even if we have to give up a little bit to get that. I didn't see a way for us to turn this into a public park. And I think that's one piece I wanted to touch on. A couple of the emails we received talked about, well, the district, rather than investing in this sort of infrastructure, should be investing in other infrastructure like a hockey rink or something. And I just want to make very clear that we are not investing as a municipality in any infrastructure here. We are rezoning, so a private proponent can do something. A benefit to the community, I think, is that we will provide some degree of protection to that area, but we are not making a choice between this and other infrastructure because, again, this is not a public project. I do appreciate that with the Access Society and so on, there will be a level of public access down to the water, and I think that's critical. I think people who have been watching council know that I've been pushing developers and proponents really hard in our climate crisis, and so I'm not at all afraid to do that. This proponent, in my perspective, has gone far above what I've seen other proponents coming before us do. And this is a local community member, his own resources doing this. This isn't some big foreign corporation. And I think trying to find a way to support each other is important. The traffic and the vehicle dependence, I think, is a global challenge for the tourism industry and our local tourism industry as a whole. I appreciate the aspirations of this project, and I think it's really important. But I think we're all going to have to, our sector as a whole is going to have to look at reducing traffic as part of this. But I don't think this one proponent can address that whole piece by themselves, and I think they've gone further than anyone else is right now. So And I would just want to call it to the pursuit of the benefits corporation status. For people that haven't looked that up, I think that's really important to understand where this business, its values are and what it's trying to be. And I think it does actually align very well with where Squamish is. So, you know, it's not a perfect project, and I think maybe with some PR missteps, but I'm willing to forgive that because it is a local person with, I think, a very good vision, trying to, from my perspective, do what they can within their means to preserve this area. So yes, I will be supporting this.
Thank you. It's great to have such an eloquent council. There's not really much more that I want to add, except to say what a difference a week can make, because we wouldn't have been able to have this public hearing this week. So, timing is everything. I think I want to acknowledge staff for their great presentation last week at the public hearing, and also for figuring out how to capture so many things that our community cared about, both in the zoning bylaw, but also in the management plan with the province. And that was not a simple thing to do, to figure out how to capture all these things going forward. So thank you for that great work. Like my colleagues, I did really listen to the comments about, you know, private versus public. The reality is that our government's not funding parks. They just cut parks budget. We would like to expand services in the parks we already have to improve facilities for tourists. And I'm sorry to say that that's not where I see things going in the short term, which is unfortunate. We do have the Destination BC plan for the corridor that is now based on the feedback from the mayors and chair in this region, now looking at sustainable tourism. And as part of that is tourism development. So creating more places for people to go, both in terms of public assets, but also in terms of private opportunities to be on the land and just start to spread people out. Some of the conflict comes when we have people over-loving a certain place, and you just have to look at Joffrey Lakes to know that it's dangerous when you have thousands and thousands of people in a really uncontrolled area, and what it can do to the environment. I know people are concerned about the road. That road is the Ministry of Forest, Lands and Natural Resources, and I look to them for their guidance about whether we can share that road safely. Is this use allowed? Can it be managed? And they know from experience around the province and did not provide us any feedback that suggested that this would have a negative impact on industrial users or make the road less safe with the improvements that have been proposed. So I actually think that the dust should improve based on what the proponent is looking at, and over time greatly improve if the paving is enabled. It is hard to start to share the places we love with thousands of people, or see some of them move into private hands, but as my colleagues have said, this was going to be logged, and it's certainly zoned for single family, and there's going to be development all around it in the decades to come. So it's a challenge, but you know, in my travels, I think the countries that are really succeeding at recreational tourism are creating accessible, safe places for people to go. You know, you protect what you love, and even if you're not in great shape and can't, you know, climb mountains, you should be able to get out and experience nature. And I think this is what this operation does. I think my one concern probably is still going to be the highway, and I know there's improvements being made, and I still think we're going to have problems there, and I can see myself or a future mayor lobbying the province to really address that intersection in a more coordinated fashion. I mean, it was already on our lobbying list of intersections. I think these things will help. I still think speed is going to be something that we're going to need to pull that 60 sign further up the hill to really make a difference. But I think that's my one big outstanding concern here that we'll have to keep our eye on. But other than that, I will be supporting the reading. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And just a reminder to the public, we still can't receive information on this bylaw until it goes for adoption. So any additional comments should be still forwarded to staff. Thank you. Next up for adoption is the District of Squamish Highway 99 Clarke Drive Road Closure Bylaw number 26, 23, 2018. That was Devin signing off. Motion to adopt. I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Staff reports. We have removed the sanitary sewer rehabilitation program. Mr. Buxton, why did we remove that?
It was actually a contract in two parts. One with the successful vendor who was subbing the video work out, and for some reason they said you could do this cheaper, we'll still administer it, and you would save $7,000. So it splits it into two, neither of which crosses the threshold for requiring council approval. So
Oh, we saved them.
you're saving at least $7,000 with no extra work, so it seemed like a reasonable option to us. Less work, less money. Yeah, we're all in.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. So if you need anything pulled from this agenda, whether it be minutes, correspondence, this is the time to let me know. Councillor Anderson.
Yes, I'd like to suggest a correction to the minutes of the Committee of the Whole, March 10th.
Mr. Chair?
So we'll pull the minutes of Committee of the Whole for March 10th. Is that the only item, Councillor Anderson?
Yes, it is, thank you.
Councillor Pettingill?
Letter 10C I, Roman numeral 1.
10C5. Who's that from? This later letter?
It's strata premiums from White Rock, Mayor of White Rock.
Who's that one?
C1.
Received
Zero.
for information.
C1.
Number one.
Oh, there. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Can
Councillor Stoner?
I want to pull C3.
C3. The student letter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. With those items pulled, motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll deal with the minutes when we get to item 13, and we'll deal with the correspondence after the ones that are on action request. So, action requested that the BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program. This is for council consideration. Can someone remind me what the ask is there?
There was no ask in the letter.
I thought it was just an update. So this one should just be received. Move receipt by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. There we had a letter about safety traffic flow that we would be referring that to the Director of Engineering for a response. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Did you have a question, Councillor Stoner?
I just want to say thank you for the detailed feedback that this person gave.
It was excellent, wasn't it?
Happy to refer it to staff.
Councillor French?
Yeah, I'll speak to it briefly. Some of the concerns expressed in this letter I share, and some of the solutions presented seem quite logical to me. And so I think it's important that we forward this to staff.
Okay, thank you. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is a letter from about the calisthenics outdoor workout equipment. And we do have like a little outdoor gym at Brenton Park, but clearly we maybe could do more, so that this be referred to the Director of Recreation to follow up. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, this one is for our consideration that Mr. Matthews from Squamish Sea Sky Development is looking for a letter of support as they lobby to get provincial and federal funding for the Shikai fan barrier project. So that would be the district of Squamish provide a letter of support to them.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. I might just speak to this, is that we would likely be applying for funding under similar measures. And so I might make that clear in my letter that we are supportive of this. This will not be the only disaster mitigation project we're looking for funding for, because we've got lots of potential projects that we need funded. So I do want to make that clear in the letter that this is a priority. We know it is, and there will be others. So I just want to create that context in my letter that we will generally have our own submissions going into this fund as well. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have minutes to approve, Committee of the Whole, or recommendations from Committee of the Whole on March 10th that we endorse the Community Climate Action Plan. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any comments on this one? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That the district accept the 2019 downtown parkade study and provide direction to staff regarding cash in lieu, which we decided should be a blend of options 1 and 7 with an initial step of $25,000 and working towards matching.
I have an edit for this.
Oh yeah, that's not what we said.
Yeah.
I think this should read a blend of options 1 and 7 with an initial step of $25,000 cash in lieu and work towards a future target. Is that what you wanted to say?
Yeah, I have a.
We can take out the matching the Vancouver.
Well, if I.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
My suggestion was the blend of 1 and 7 doesn't really. In the meeting, it articulated the points because we were. Stay over there. Because we were. We were being presented that information that way. So beyond the little stumble of that language about matching Vancouver, I wanted to suggest an edit, which would be break out what option 1 was and what option 7 was, so that we could actually and so that our community could actually see what those were in the motion. Are we able to edit that, to change that now, or is it a fresh motion at this point?
I think the simpler version would just be to increase the cash in lieu amount to $25,000.
Yes. With a future target of 65,000.
Yeah, without referring to
the
what option 1 and 7 were.
Yeah, and then the second piece is staff to explore paid parking in downtown with the goal of transport demand management. And then for clarity, I wanted to add both items we brought forward for consideration in the 2021 budget.
Done the 2020 budget.
2021, I said. I don't know that if it...
What did you want to bring forward for 2021?
A proposal for the pay parking downtown. Now,
That's not my recollection of
if
the
that's it,
evening.
because that was, and this is the point, is that the option 7 was the option 7 is the pay parking. That's what option 7 was, but we're not articulating that in the motion. That's why, this is exactly why I wanted to clarify what those two pieces were. So, and then the budget piece is just a specific ask. But if that substantively changes it, I can pull
You can't
that.
substantially change it. It's a regular business meeting, so you can propose.
So that's what I would like to.
motion.
That's what I would like to propose.
Okay. Did you have a question, Councillor Anderson?
I suppose it is a question, or rather a concern, that we don't have the wording of option 7 here, because it strikes me that there was other phrasing there, unless that may be available, that was not only, it addressed other measures, not only paid parking, did refer to paid parking, but I was sure that it referred to other measures, because there are other measures in our toolbox that I thought were reflected there. I'm uncomfortable not having the wording of option 7, so that we may be losing something that there was consensus around during the meeting.
Okay, so
I
we're
have-
just pulling up option
Thank you.
7.
I have it here as well. I can read it out and we can
Yeah,
have it.
it's not on the presentation.
Slide 13, next slide.
That's the next slide.
Oh, you mean 7 comes after 6?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, the way I had it, from whatever the source was I cut for my notes here, was maintain the current rate, and this is where the blend piece comes in, and to articulate what the blend is, because it says maintain the current rate of 15,000 per space, increase the cost of inflation per annum, and given the new parkade will primarily serve the commercial development, adopt a pay parking structure enabling the district to recoup funds and fund the remainder of the cost of parkade. So I wanted to make sure that when I put the motion forward, and we can have the discussion again here, that was the part of the 7 that jumped out for me, was the pay parking to create the movement and further our objectives of having available parking spots for people to come downtown and do their shopping. So that's what I meant when I put the motion forward of a blend of 1 and 7. It was that particular part of 7 that I wanted, and the other part of 1 was the increase of the overall rate. So whether everyone understood that or not, I guess that's on me when I put forward the motion, which I felt was clear given our discussion, but this is exactly why I'm bringing it up now, so we understand which piece of which package I'm proposing that we combine.
So Mr. Buxton has just put something on the screen that might summarize it, which is to increase fee per space to $25,000 to better reflect the construction cost and examine opportunities to fund through pay parking.
Well, part of this, and through our discussion last week, was that the ability to they called it the demand management, was to create the motion, not necessarily using it as a funding leverage to continue to pay off the spaces in this proposed parkade, or to me it's being able to bridge us until such time as we truly need a parkade, if ever, or that or that we can afford to do whatever it is that we're going to do at that point. So in the in-between, to get us there, I feel, and part of that presentation was also about this, was to create that movement. So that was my intent, and those were the pieces of each option I wanted to advance.
Okay, so are there any other questions at this point? Because I'm going to get Councillor Herford to reiterate his motion, unless you've captured it, but Ms. Arthurs?
Well, I don't, are you removing the part of a blend of options 1 and 7?
Well, maybe let's get
Yeah.
Councillor Herford to articulate
Yeah,
his motion again.
Okay.
Okay, go for it.
So the first part stays the same, but the district of Squamish accept the 2019 downtown parkade study for planning purposes and provide direction to staff regarding the cash in lieu fee strategy as follows. And this is the edit. A blend of option 1 and 7 as follows, which is increase cash in lieu to $25,000 with a future target of $65,000. Staff to explore pay parking in the downtown with the goal of transport demand management, and both items to be brought forward for consideration in the 2021 budget. And by that, if that's not clear enough, is that jump to 65 is what I'd like to understand in advance for 2021 budget, just to see what those impacts are, because we were talking about it being such a large jump. We wanted to make sure that all of our other policies aligned with that. It didn't have any unintended consequences as we went to that higher number.
So that is my confusion about why you were referring the fee to the budget, because it doesn't need to be in the budget, it can just go into our cash in lieu policy. I think what we were troubled with was we wanted a plan to get to 65,000 that was aligned with our climate action strategy, so that council had an opportunity to decide whether that was the true direction we wanted to take, or whether there was policy that's gonna come from the climate action side that would be preferable.
Okay,
I think that was the point that Councillor Anderson was possibly talking about too, is that we talk about blending.
Okay, so then if we further amend that to have the pay park in the downtown with the goal of transport demand management for consideration of 2021 budget, and that leaves that other piece. The increased cash in lieu doesn't need to come to budget. It's just such that point.
Yeah.
Do we have, sorry, Robin, did you get?
I think I got that.
Okay.
So I think it is a blend of 1 and 7 with an initial step up to 25,000, and that staff bring back a plan to get to 65,000.
Yes.
Subsequent to that, bring back in the 2021 budget, what was your wording?
So staff to explore pay parking in the downtown with the goal of transport demand management to be brought forward for consideration in the 2021 budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Is everyone clear on the motion? Okay. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any further comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Tourism impact study that we received, the Squamish Tourism Impact Study, presented on March 10th. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Big day, this committee of the whole. Short-term rentals that we received the March 10th report, that staff bring forward draft short-term rental bylaw, amendments for consideration, that we review the permissive tax exemption options to support affordable housing for the 2021 tax year. We direct staff to conduct a phased review of utility rate options as proposed on the March 10th report. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Anderson.
Chair?
Yeah. Councillor Pegg.
I'm probably going to vote in opposition to the second clause, so we may want to split these out.
Which, the bringing forward the draft.
Yeah. And that's consistent with how I voted at the committee of the whole. So the first, third, and fourth I supported, and the second I opposed.
Okay, so the mover, can you move, is that an amendment to move it without the second clause?
Yes.
Okay, is that all right with the seconder? All right, but that is what is on the table. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Does someone want to move the second clause? Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. Comments? I'll make a comment. I am nervous about what's coming forward in these bylaws. I think there is still some nuance that is missing here. I think Councillor Pettingill's comment about do we have details about what will be returned to the long-term market is a measure that, if that's the reason we're putting these regulations in place, that's the reason we should be measuring that. I'm not sure that what we saw on March 10th will accomplish that. I do think, you know, we need to see a business case that covers our costs of enforcement here. I'm still concerned about that. And I'm still certainly more attracted to a model that Tofino's using, which is if you have a suite and a carriage house, one of them can be a short-term rental. And I think that would actually encourage more density into our single-family home neighborhoods, potentially over time, and give people the flexibility that they're looking for. And I still don't think we have enough incentive on the long-term rental side to really show that. At the same time, I just want the community to hear that we are building purpose-built rental. So we're not trying to put this problem on the backs of STR homeowners. Any other comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed?
Chris?
Just say nay.
Nay.
Councillor Pettingill opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. That the district receive the draft Squamish Child Care Action Plan.
Did you do 3 and 4 with number 1?
Yes, we did.
Okay, very good.
And that council directs staff to implement the actions and next steps recommended in the plan. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And that recommendations from Smoke Bluffs Park Committee that the kiosk map be approved with the addition of color on the washroom icons, reduce the green mesh color on the map, and consideration of possible map location change. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The amendments to March 10th, Councillor Anderson.
Yes. In the minutes for committee of the whole meeting March 10th under 2019 downtown parkade study, on page 3 it has the motion being made by Councillor Anderson. I do appreciate there was a tumble and a confusion and then no fault at all or blame to the minute taker, but it was in fact a motion put forward by Councillor Pettingill. I initially put forward a motion but withdrew it, so that's Councillor Pettingill in place of Councillor Anderson. That's my change.
Good catch, thank you. So that we approve the minutes as amended, moved by Councillor Anderson himself, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? That we receive the advisory design panel minutes for February 20th. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And that we received the minutes from Smoke Bluffs Park, March 5th. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Council in staff.
There were 2 letters that were pulled.
Oh, darn it. I missed them. Oh, you guys should have caught me up.
You moved so quickly.
Sorry.
Efficiently.
Okay, going back to correspondence. Correspondence, Councillor Pettingill from the Mayor of White Rock.
Yeah, so this is in reference to, I've heard a lot about it on the news. I'm a little bit surprised I haven't heard anything from constituents in Squamish yet, but I am anticipating that basically people with condos are seeing, or stratas are seeing their insurance rates go up. The insurance companies, from what I understand, are claiming this is largely driven by climate change risk. And as I understand the White Rock proposal, it is that municipalities and other levels of government take on some risk sharing to help manage the prices. And I think this is something that we're going to have to pay attention to and think about. I think managing these prices is critically important, and that's where I agree with White Rock. But I also believe that this is not a risk that government should be taking on. I think this is one of the places where some fossil fuel corporation accountability is important. So it's a good discussion to have going forward, and I would encourage, as we come up to LMLGA and UBCM, sort of wondering what form those will take, but that people in stratas and Squamish let us know if this is an issue impacting them, and we can help bring forward some of those thoughts to this discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner, you pulled the student letter.
Yeah, there's nobody in the gallery to highlight this to, but maybe our media is watching online, that we received a letter from a 2nd grader from Ohio named Killian Sullivan with a report of how fantastic Squamish is as a place to come and visit. So if nothing else, maybe we should forward it to Tourism Squamish in addition to the mayor's response, which she has already sent. But I just wanted to highlight, thank you for the effort to write the letter, and thanks to the mayor for already responding.
Thank you. Do you want me to send it to Tourism?
Yes, I will move that you send it to Tourism Squamish.
All right, we'll forward the letter to Tourism Squamish, seconded by Councillor French, so that they can read that lovely review of our town. It was so great to read. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll forward that. Over to Tourism Squamish. And we'll receive the letter from the Mayor of White Rock. That'll be moved by Councillor Pettingill, second by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Council, staff, in camera, no, we have no in camera announcements. There's no one here to ask us questions. Thank goodness social distancing is working. Council or staff announcements. Council French.
Happy to announce that the Four Lakes Trail is open. The hiking trail up the Squamish Chief is open. Wonderland is also open for hikers and bikers. Go outside and play. Nothing outside is impacted by COVID-19. Have fun up there.
Thank you. Just don't get hurt because our hospital doesn't want you anymore.
Yes, that too.
Any other comments?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Council Pengill.
So last Saturday, I think it was, I attended at Totem Hall a discussion about Squamish Nation Guardianship Program, and it's something that different nations across Canada are adopting, where First Nations essentially get out on the land and act as guardians and the eyes and ears for things that are happening on the land. Sounds like a really fantastic program, and so there is a number of people from the community. Ms. Dicker from the District of Squamish attended with me, just hearing what, and this tends to be a very youth-driven thing, and so hearing what the young folks at Squamish Nation are planning was really exciting. We finished off the day with a botany tour in the estuary. And it was just an incredible, gorgeous day, and just really exciting to see some of the things that are happening in our town. And I look forward to the next steps on the guardianship program.
Thank you. Did anybody go to the Quest Sustainability Summit? Councilor Stoner?
It was canceled about 20 minutes before it was meant to start as a result of Quest closing due to COVID-19.
Oh, okay. I wondered if that had managed to go ahead. Any other announcements? I will just say, I know there's no one here from the public, but we are in a challenging time with COVID-19. Our council, knows that we can't move forward business at this time that requires public engagement. Until we get further direction from the province, it's going to be very difficult for us to look at any bylaws where we would have public hearings or move forward any major policies that we would really love to consult with our community on. We are awaiting some direction from the province in the coming days about what public participation can and could look like, depending on how long this emergency lasts. So we still don't know. For the time being, we are going to limit our agendas to really just focus on critical business only. Things that have to move forward in order to keep essential services going, to meet contract obligations, to move our budget forwards in order to tender the activities that we need done in terms of our capital plan, those sorts of things. So I want to assure the community that we're not going to try and move forward business that requires your input until we have better direction from the province, until some time has passed and we figure out what our new normal looks like. We will likely not be holding regular business meetings. We will likely just hold special meetings, unless of course legislation changes and makes it very easy to continue with regular meetings in the time being. So we will share information with the community as quickly and as often as we have it. Things are still changing pretty much hourly. We did get the directive today that bars are to close and that restaurants must close if they can't assure the social distancing. This is going to have a big impact on our community, and I can assure everyone that there are lots of people working on this. We are connected to our community partners around economic development to make sure that we not only have plans around supporting businesses today, but how will we support them coming out of this emergency. Our services sector is already meeting to figure out how they collaborate and support our most vulnerable populations. The province is working very closely with local governments, as is Vancouver Coastal Health, and we're really grateful about all the effort that's been made to reach out and keep mayors informed about what's going on. It's been so helpful. So I just ask everyone to please follow the directives of public health. It's really important right now for people to stay home as much as possible. Definitely don't go out if you're sick. And we all have a responsibility to our elders in the community and those who are more vulnerable. That is who this virus is going to impact the most, and we all need to take personal responsibility for protecting them. So even if you don't think this is a big deal, and you're a young person, you're responsible now for taking care of seniors and elders in our community. So please let that guide your actions more than your own bravado. So I would like to thank our Emergency Operations Center team who has been working so hard since last Wednesday and will continue to do so. I thank our staff who are stepping up to the plate with resiliency to figure out how they work from home, keep our services running because they know our community needs them. So this council is going to brainstorm, I think, behind the scenes about ways that we continue to engage with the community even if we can't be out in community. And so we all are still very much available by phone and email. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you all for your support. So with that, I will call for motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herper. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.